thank you very much, ladies, gentlemen, and Twitter followers. I'm going to read two parts from MaddAddam. So I'm going to start with the male narrating voice in this book. There are two voices, essentially, that tell the story, and one is a man and one is a woman, and we've met both of them before. The male narrator is Zeb, who never really fit into the God's Gardeners all that well. He was a specialist in urban bloodshed limitation, taking the view that your own bloodshed was the one you needed to limit first. And he also was a teacher of how to trap, skin, and broil small animals if you really had to. The gardeners are vegetarian unless you get really, really hungry. So in case you get really, really hungry, you need to have this skill. Now we're going to find out a little bit about how he might have acquired some of those skills. We're going back into his past. We were told in the year of the flood, it's just a rumor among the gardener kids that he ate a bear once. They're not too sure what a bear is, but it sounds good. They've never seen one. And the rumor at that time also was that he ate his co-pilot. And as we enter his story now, he has eaten part of the co-pilot, but he has now run out of food, the air vehicle having crashed. In Canada, which, as the pop group The Arrogant Worms says in their song, Canada's really big. So his vehicle has crashed in the big part. If you go to a map and locate the Yukon, locate a city called Whitehorse, and then take a northeasterly direction across the Mackenzie Mountains, you would find yourself on the Mackenzie Mountain Barrens, which are so high up that the land there is like tundra. So grizzly bears, not a lot of trees, no people. In fact, there is a sign as you enter it that says, no gas, food, or lodging beyond this point. It is so, and here's the American part of my talk that maybe you didn't know about. During the war, the Americans built a road from a place called Norman Wells for oil wells. They built it from Norman Wells through the Mackenzie Mountain Barrens with the idea that they would run a pipeline along it so that they could transport oil inland and it would not be blown up by submarines in the Pacific Ocean. And they did build that road. They never actually used the pipeline because guess what? It was too small. And the oil froze in it in the wintertime, and anyway, by that time the war was over, but they built it, and since things decay slowly under those conditions, everything's still there. So the trucks are still there, those 1940s streamlined trucks. The bunkie where they slept is still there, the oil drums are still there, the telegraph wire is still there, although a lot of it has fallen down and caribou get entangled in it. You can see their skeletons here and there snarled up in telegraph wire. So this is where our hero Zeb has crashed, and he is attempting to walk out along this road, which is now known as the Old Kennel Trail. If he keeps going far enough in a southwesterly direction, he will reach Whitehorse. But it's going to take him a while. He's run out of food, and it's cold at night. He spent the night hunkered down between two boulders, shivering like a timber, despite the two crackly metal survival blankets and the fire he'd made from dead willow and creekside mini birch. By the time the next pink sunset had come round, he'd run out of food. He'd stopped worrying about bears. In fact, he was longing to meet one, a big, fat one he could sink his teeth into. He dreamed of little globules of fat sifting down through the air like snow, the pellet-shaped kind of snow, not the flakes. He dreamed of it settling down on him into his bodily creases and crannies, plumping him up. The brain was 100% cholesterol, so he needed the boost. He hungered for it. He could visualize the inside of his body, the ribs encasing a hollow lined with teeth. If he stuck out his tongue in such a fat fall, the air would taste like chicken soup. The next day was bright and almost hot. Things in the distance were wobbly at the edges, like a mirage. Was he hungry anymore? Hard to tell. He could sense words rising from him, burning away in the sun. Soon he'd be wordless, and then would he still be able to think? No and yes, yes and no. He'd be up against it, up against everything that filled the space he was moving through, with no glass pane of language coming between him and not him. Not him was seeping into him through his defenses, through his edges, eating away at form, sending its rootlets into his head like reverse hairs. Soon he'd be overgrown, one with the moss. He needed to keep moving, preserve his outlines, define himself by his own shock waves, the wake he left in the air, to keep alert, to stay attuned to the what? To whatever might come at him and stop him dead. At the next washed-out bridge, a bear congealed from the low shrubs flanking the river. It was not there, and then it was there, and it reared up, startled, offering itself. Was there growling, a roar, a stench? No doubt, but Zeb can't remember. He must have sprayed its eyes with the bear spray and shot it point blank, but there's no photo record. Next thing he knew, he was butchering it, hacking away at it with his inadequate knife, blood up to the wrists, then bonanza, the meat, the fur. The two ravens stood at a distance, making our noises, waiting their turn. Gobbets for him, followed by pickings for them. Not too much, he told himself, chewing, recalling the dangers of stuffing yourself on an empty stomach, especially on something so rich and supersaturated. Little at a time. His voice came to him muffled, as if he was telephoning himself from underground. What did this taste like? Who cared? Having eaten the heart, could he now speak the language of bears? Picture him the next day or the next or sometime halfway there, wherever there is, though he retains the belief that it is in fact somewhere. He's got new footgear, wraps of hide, fur side in, tied with crisscross strips like a fashion item in a caveman comic. He's got a fur cape, he's got a fur hat, and all of it doubles as sleeping gear, heavy and stinky. He's porting a meat cargo and a big wad of fat. Goodbye to care, he sings. The ravens are sticking with him, shadowing him. Now there are 4 of them. He's the Pied Piper of ravens. There's a bluebird on my windowsill, he sings to them. His mother went in for cheerful, upbeat, retro crap. That and perky hymns. And now, coming towards him, along the relatively smooth stretch of road ahead, far in the distance, there's a cyclist. Some rugged mountain bike adventurer, out of his mind on endorphins. They pass through Whitehorse from time to time, augment their kits at the outfitter stores, head for the hills to test their endurance mettle on the old Kennel Trail. They pedal as far as the bunkie, that's their usual trajectory. Then they pedal back, thinner, stringier, madder. Some bring tales of alien abductions, some of talking foxes, some of human voices on the tundra at night, or semi-human voices trying to lure them. No, 2 cyclists, one quite a bit ahead. Lovers' tiff, he speculates. The normal thing would be to stick together. Useful things, mountain bikes, also pannier packs and whatever might be in them. Zeb hides in the creekside shrubbery, waits for the first one to go past. A woman, blonde, sporting the thighs of a stainless steel nutcracker goddess in her shiny, skin-tight cycle wear. Under her streamlined helmet, she's squinting into the wind, frowning fit to kill, with her skimpy eyebrows over her trendy little wind-sun goggles. Away she goes, bumpity-bump, ass taut as an implanted tit, and now here comes the guy, keeping his distance, morose, mouth down at the corners. He's pissed her off. He's feeling the whip. He's burdened with a misery Zeb can alleviate. Rah! Zeb yells, or words to that effect. Short form, he leaps out of the bushes and onto the guy, making a growly noise in his bare fur coverings. There's a strangled yelp from the target, then a metallic toppling. No need to bash the poor sucker. He's out cold anyway. Just take the cycle with its twin saddle packs and make off. When he looks behind, the girl has stopped. He can picture her recently clamped mouth and open O, the O of woe. Now she'll be sorry she tongue-lashed the sad bugger. She'll thunder thigh back, kneel and minister, rock and cradle, dab at scrapes, shed tears. The lad will come to and gaze into her ungoggled eyes, the simp, and all will be forgiven, whatever it was. Then they will use her cell phone to call for aid. What will they say? He can imagine. Luckily, there's a palsa that's been ripped open, no doubt by an enraged growler in search of evasive ground squirrels. Zeb digs himself and the bike into the moist black earth, leaving a vantage point between clods. After a long, damp wait, here comes the thopter. It hovers over where the 2 young cyclists must be hugging and shivering and thanking their lucky stars, and down goes the ladder, and after a time, up go the lovers, and then they're carried away in the slow, low thopter, flippity-flop, blimpity-blimp. What a story they will have to tell. Sasquatches are real, after all. And they've migrated to the Mackenzie mountain barrens. No, it couldn't have been a bear because bears can't ride mountain bikes. Anyway, this thing was 7 feet tall, with eyes almost like a man's, and it smelled terrible, and it showed signs of almost human intelligence. There's even a picture taken on the girl's cell phone, a brown blob with a red circle around it to signal which of the many brown blobs in the picture is the significant one. Within a week, Bigfoot believers from around the world have formed a posse and mounted an expedition to the site of the discovery and are combing the area for footprints and tufts of hair and piles of dung. Soon, says their leader, they will have a batch of definitive DNA, and then these scoffers will be shown up for the corrupt, fossilized, obsolete truth deniers that they are. Very soon. So now I'm going to read some from Toby's part of the story. I tried to pick out a bit that would be self-standing. And in this piece, Toby is in search of a hive of wild bees, as you would be. Due to the action just taken by the European Union, there still are some bees. So you've arranged that for the future. Thank you. It's helpful for my novel. Found a swarm for you, says Zeb's voice. He's come up behind her unseen, so much for her own alertness. She turns, smiling. Is it a real smile? Not entirely, because she still doesn't know the truth about Swift Fox and Zeb. Did they or didn't they? And if he simply took the open door, so to speak, if he didn't think twice about it, why should she? A swarm, she says? Really? Where? Come into the forest with me, he says, grinning like a fairy tale wolf, holding out his paw of a hand. So of course she takes it and forgives him everything, for the moment, even though there may not be anything to forgive. They walk towards the tree edge, away from the cob house clearing. It does feel like a clearing now, although the MaddAddamites didn't clear anything. But now that the vegetation is moving in, they're working to keep it clear, so maybe that counts. It's cooler under the trees, also more ominous. The green cross-hatching of leaves and branches blocks the sight lines. There's a trail indicated by bent twigs showing the way Zeb must have come earlier. Are you sure this is safe, Toby says. She's lowered her voice without even thinking about it. In the open, you look because a predator will be seen before it's heard, but among the trees, you have to listen because it will be heard before it's seen. I was just back here. I checked it out, says Zeb, too confidently for Toby, but there's the swarm, a large bee ball the size of a watermelon, hanging in the lower branches of a young sycamore. It's buzzing softly. The surface of the ball is rippling like golden fur in a breeze. Thank you, says Toby. She ought to go back to the cob house, find a container, and scoop the center of the swarm into it to capture the queen. Then the rest of the swarm will follow. She won't even need to smoke the bees. They won't sting because they aren't defending a nest. She'll explain to them first that she means them well and that she hopes they will be her messengers to the land of the dead. Pilar, her bee teacher at the gardener's, told her this speech was necessary when persuading a swarm of wild bees to come with you. Maybe I should get a bag or something, she says. They're already scouting for a good nest site. They'll be flying soon. You want me to babysit them, asks Zeb. It's okay, she says. But could you just not listen to me for a minute and look the other way? You need to take a leak, says Zeb. Don't mind me. You know how this goes. You were a gardener yourself, she says. I need to talk to the bees. It's one of the gardener practices that, viewed by an outsider, must seem weird. And it still does seem weird to her because part of her remains an outsider. Sure, says Zeb. Hey, do your stuff. He turns sideways, gazes into the forest. Toby feels herself blushing, but she pulls the end of her bedsheet up to cover her head. Essential, old Pilar said, or the bees would feel disrespected, and speaks in a whisper to the buzzing fur ball. Oh, bees, she says, I send greetings to your queen. I wish to be her friend and to prepare a safe home for her and for you who are her daughters, and to tell all of you the news every day. May you carry messages from the land of the living to all souls who dwell in the land of shadows. Please tell me now whether you accept my offer. She waits. The buzzing increases. Then several of the scout bees fly down and land on her face. They explore her skin, her nostrils, the corners of her eyes. It's as if a dozen tiny fingers are stroking her. If they sting, the answer is no. If they don't sting, the answer is yes. She breathes in, willing herself to be calm. They don't like fear. The scout bees lift away from her, spiral back towards the swarm, blend into the moving golden pelt. Toby breathes out. "You can look now," she says to Zeb. There's a crackling, a thrashing. Something's coming towards them through the undergrowth. Toby feels the blood leave her hands. Oh shit, she thinks. Pig, wolvog, we don't have a spray gun, and my rifle's back there in the garden. She scans around for a stone to throw. Zeb has picked up a stick. But no, it's not an animal. There's a voice. It's people. There's no gardener prayer against people. Paintballers, they don't know we're here. What should we do? Run? No, they're too close now. Get out of the line of fire if possible. Zeb has stepped in front of her, pushed her back with one hand. He freezes. Then he laughs.